Hi everybody, this is a video overview of this knife. This knife is the Civivi Exarch, and this is a member of We Knives Civivi brand lineup. It is a less expensive knife. As you can see, it sort of has that Quaken feel to it. But before we get into it, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to go through what I normally do. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the knife, show you some size comparisons, talk about the specs, and then tell you what I like and what I don't like. Before we do that, I need to let you know that Civivi sent me this knife for review. They did so free of charge. So let's assume that they did the best job with this knife and picked it out of the lineup because it was a good one. That being said, I've had a bunch of Civivi knives in for review and other knives made by We, including We Knives and knives they made for Fair & Forge, and they have all had impeccable fit and finish like this one does. So let's do a little bit of size comparisons. Here is the Exarch next to the mini grip, and as you can see, the Exarch is a little taller than the mini grip. Here's the Exarch next to an American dollar. It is smaller than an American dollar when closed. Obviously, it is wider when it's open. And as you can see, the thickness on this knife compared to a AA battery, the AA battery is ever so slightly thicker than this knife is when viewed in profile. So let's talk about the specs. So this is a knife that's a front flipper, as you can see there. It rides on bearings. It's a liner lock. It has the D2 blade steel, which is not uncommon for Civivi knives. I would prefer that they use the 9CR, but if they're going to use a different steel, D2 is a perfectly fine choice, especially on a budget knife. It has black G10 handles. I'm assuming that if this knife is successful, they will do runs in the Damascus blade versions that they always do. As you can see, it has an off-the-shelf clip from Civivi, and it is a deep carry over-the-top pocket clip. The clip is excellent. The standoff here is actually the lanyard attachment, which I think is a brilliant way to implement a lanyard, but not screw up the blades, or not screw up the handle or the clip placement. Excellent, excellent job. The overall look of the knife is really nice. I think this knife is somewhere around $40 or $50. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere you want. The blade centering is obviously really good. The blade finish, D2 is something that's really hard to get a high polish on. And I do carry this knife, and I've used it in reviews coming soon. But, the blade finish here is pretty nice. There's a sharpening choil. It's probably not big enough to really use as a finger choil. There's a sharpening choil here that lets you sharpen to the end of the knife. So let's talk about what I like. Obviously, I like the profile. This knife is really, really slim. It's really thin. And the overall look and feel are just very nice, tight, and clean. The C logo here with this very well machined, very well made handle just gives this knife a really nice look and feel. I can tell you that I like the herringbone pattern that they did on the edges here. It gives that sort of chamfer, that offset, a little bit of visual appeal. The other thing that I really like about this knife, as you can see inside, the liners on both sides are skeletonized, which brings down the weight considerably. So this is a very slim, very nice looking, very lightweight knife. The pocket clip is truly excellent as well. I don't have any complaints here, especially because they mounted it so that it was exactly parallel to the top portion of the blade, right? If it sticks out, if the clip sticks out beyond the blade, it's kind of an annoyance. But because this lanyard hole is here, it gives it a little bit of extra coverage, a little bit of extra protection, so that you're not like, oh crap, my knife is poking out of my pocket. It just does very, very well, and it helps reduce the paint scraper aspect of over-the-top pocket clips. Another thing I really like is I love this implementation of a lanyard. Lanyards are stupid, but knife nuts sort of insist on them, and so oftentimes companies will go to great lengths. Ding! Look at that. To incorporate a lanyard when you don't really need it. And by using it as both the standoff and the lanyard hole, it sort of does double duty without compromising anything on the handle geography. One of the knives that I really like is the Spyderco Brouwer, and by placing the lanyard hole on there, it disrupted the clip, then the clip disrupted the handle, and it was just a mess. So doing it this way is much cleaner and much neater, and I also think that it gives the knife a little bit more visual kick. So it's not like just a big hole right in the middle of the blade. Okay, so there's a bunch of things that I like about this knife. The price is pretty decent. The one thing I really don't like about this knife, and this is a shame because this is sort of the calling card of the knife, is the front flipper. The front flipper here is just too much. It's too much to get the knife open, and you really have to focus on it. This is not one of those like effortless flipper things. You can easily fail fire. And unfortunately, when you fail fire on a front flipper, unlike with a regular flipper, which sort of just blow, let's see if I can, it's really hard to fail fire this knife. Yeah, there you go. It just doesn't open. This one will actually scrape up your hand. And that's one of the issues I have with a lot of front flippers, is that if they're really tight and the detent is dialed in, then they can kind of screw up your thumb. As you can see, I got a little wear on my thumb from using and carrying this knife. I don't think this was well implemented, and it really does detract from the whole knife. They kind of need to tweak the detent and tweak the pivot, tweak the geometry of this, because as it is, it's just not great. The other thing is the flipper tab here really does poke in the pocket. I mean, it's sticking out quite a bit from the edge of the knife, and the end result is when you jam this in your pocket, you're gonna feel it. And on a couple of occasions, I've had it where it dug into my thigh, and it's really unpleasant. It's one thing to have that versus that. I mean, because of the way the knife hangs in your pocket, it's really hard for that one to dig in. But this one is sort of at the end, and it just pokes a lot. So overall, I think this knife is a good buy. If you like the design, great. The flipping action could be improved, and this is, yet another entry into the long line of pretty darn good Civivi knives. I think that they could make this knife in a regular flipper, and it would be better. I also think that they should consider doing like a Vero Impulse design, a Vero Designs or Dietz mod here, where they would carry the tang of the blade right up to the edge so that you could access it here instead of here. And that wouldn't change the silhouette of the knife as much. It wouldn't make it as pokey. And it would give you that more conventional flipper feel so that the detent can be left the same. Because this detent is pretty crisp. And if it had a regular flipper, that would be fine. But with this front flipper, you're putting a lot of pressure on that little tiny tab. And as a result, it does get uncomfortable after some period of use. So look for a video or a written review of the Exarch coming soon.